We're back now with the news in detail. Our top story is out of Syria, where a car bomb has killed at least 17 people in the northwestern city of Azaz near the Idlib safe zone. Elsewhere, 5 people, including a Syrian soldier, were killed in an Israeli rocket attack in Homs province. The car bomb targeted Turkish-backed opposition forces, killing 14, including 4 children, and injuring 20 others. No group has yet claimed responsibility. U.S. President Donald Trump has blamed Russia, Syria, and Iran for the violence in Idlib. Moscow has pledged to continue supporting the Syrian offensive in Idlib, ignoring Trump's remarks. A similar explosion killed 10 people a day earlier in the northeastern city of Raqqa. Meanwhile, Syria has accused Israel of targeting an airbase in Homs. This follows attacks on Quneitra military posts that killed 10 Syrian soldiers on Sunday. Kurdish authorities, meanwhile, have said they plan to hand over 800 women and children, including relatives of ISIS militants, to their families. The women and children are living in the Kurdish-run Al-Hol camp in northeast Syria. The site is home to nearly 74,000 people, including more than 30,000 Syrians. The move follows an agreement brokered by the Kurdish administration and Arab tribal leaders last month. According to a Kurdish Executive Council official, this is the first in a larger wave of releases aimed to empty the Al-Hol camp. The next batch is expected to follow after Eid. Well, the White House senior advisor Jared Kushner is set to unveil his Middle East peace plan in Bahrain this month. The U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has said the Trump administration's unworkable peace plan might not gain traction. Pompeo said Kushner's peace plan is not particularly original and might only be loved by Israelis. Egypt, too, has said it would not accept a plan against the wishes of the Palestinian people. The blueprint reportedly proposes an expansion of Gaza into parts of northern Sinai under Egyptian control. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump has called on Israelis to get their act together after an electoral upheaval. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has fired 2 key ministers ahead of the country's second snap polls. Houthi rebels, meanwhile, have launched a drone attack on a military parade of Yemen government coalition forces. Saudi state media said the drone was shot down by air defenses west of Aden port city. No casualties have been reported yet. Qatar has expressed reservations about what it has called hardline statements on Iran made at the Makkah emergency summits. Along with Iraq, Qatar is the second Arab country to reject the communique. The foreign ministry said the summits failed to produce a moderate policy to speak with Tehran. It said the summits adopted Washington's policies towards Iran and not one that takes the neighborhood into consideration. Doha questioned the call for unity by its neighbors during an ongoing blockade against Tehran. Iran has said the U.S. should return to a normal state for talks. President Hassan Rouhani says Washington has breached a treaty and left Iran with no choice but resistance. This comes after U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said his country is ready to hold talks with Iran without preconditions. But he said Washington will continue working to rein in what he called Iran's malign activities. Relations between the two countries have soured after the U.S. tightened sanctions and boosted its military presence in the Persian Gulf. British Airways is resuming direct flights to Pakistan for the first time in over 10 years. The route had been suspended after a bomb devastated Islamabad's Marriott Hotel. British Airways will be the only Western airline flying between London and Islamabad. The first journey will land with 240 passengers today at Islamabad International Airport. The airline will fly 3 times a week from Islamabad. British Airways has said it will offer bespoke services, including halal meal options in every class. At least 2 people have been killed and 24 others wounded in 3 explosions in Kabul. 2 Afghan journalists and 4 women were among those injured. The Interior Ministry said the first bomb was attached to a bus carrying university students. It was followed 20 minutes later by 2 roadside bomb blasts in the same area. Sudan's army has launched an operation to end the month-long civilian protest sit-ins in Khartoum. At least 2 protesters have been killed and several were injured after troops used force to disperse demonstrators. Shots were also fired. The raids came days after military rulers called the sit-in outside the Defense Ministry a national security threat. In a tweet, demonstrators said the ruling military has sent a large number of troops to remove the protest camp. The military council and protest leaders are still unable to agree on the composition of a ruling council. Sudan has been gripped by political crisis since the overthrow of ex-President Omar al-Bashir on April 11th. Algeria's Constitutional Council, meanwhile, has scrapped a presidential election scheduled for July 4th because too few candidates applied for the top office. The council asked interim President Abdelkader Ben Salah to organize a vote at a later date. That move will probably extend Ben Salah's rule. He was only meant to stay until the vote to elect a new president following mass protests that forced the end of ex-President Bouteflika's 20-year rule. Demonstrations have since continued, with protesters demanding Ben Salah's resignation and an end to the dominance of the elite. At least 2 migrants have died when their inflatable boat capsized off the western Libyan coast. A Libyan Coast Guard spokesman said 25 others are still missing. He said the service rescued 73 other migrants after being alerted by fishermen. The 40 men, 25 women, and 8 children were taken to a center in Tripoli's suburbs. Libya, which has been mired in chaos in recent years, is a key departure point for migrants hoping to reach European shores. According to the United Nations, nearly 20,000 people have crossed the Mediterranean Sea this year, with over 500 dead and missing. Top defense officials from the U.S. and South Korea have met in Seoul amid rising tensions with North Korea. The South Korean Defense Minister Jeong Kyung-do said the security cooperation with Washington is stronger than ever. The U.S. Acting Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan insisted on North Korea's denuclearization.
The only acceptable end state is the complete and verified denuclearization of the peninsula. Our alliance and the international community will not cede to a lesser solution.
President Donald Trump has said White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett will soon leave his post. Hassett's departure comes during an intensifying trade war between the U.S. and China. In a tweet, Trump thanked Hassett for his work and called him a true friend. He said the advisor did a great job for the White House. The president said a replacement will be announced when he returns from Europe. Well, the U.S. president will soon arrive in London for a 3-day state visit. Before that visit, Trump praised a more radical Brexit-supporting potential successor to May. Earlier, his envoys urged a tougher British stance towards telecoms giant Huawei. The President and First Lady Melania Trump will be guests of the Queen. They will also take part in commemorations to mark the 75th anniversary of the D-Day landings. The visit will include talks with Prime Minister Theresa May at Downing Street. Britain has set up a multi-million-pound security operation to protect Donald Trump. He will be greeted with protests from pro- and anti-Trump groups across the UK. Ahead of his visit, Trump denied calling Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, a nasty woman. Staying on that topic, the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has criticized the UK government over those plans to receive US President Donald Trump. Khan said Trump's policies were opposed to British values. Therefore, he should not be given a state visit.
Relations with our closest allies.
Khan said it is wrong to give US President Donald Trump the red carpet treatment. In an interview, he dubbed Trump a 20th century fascist. He said actions taken by Trump since he came into power were abhorrent and offensive.
And my point is this, some of the things Donald Trump has done over the last 2-3 years, Londoners find abhorrent and offensive, rolling back the reproductive rights of women, separating children from their parents on the Mexican border, introducing a ban on Muslim-majority countries, standing up and defending white supremacists, neo-Nazis and anti-Semites in Charlottesville.
London Mayor Sadiq Khan clarified that the UK should continue its close relationship with the US, but he added that Washington must be called out for actions it had taken under President Donald Trump.
And my frustration with our Prime Minister is she's not willing to say boo to a goose. Now, of course, have good relations with the USA. At times of adversity, we stand with them, they stand with us, commemorate the 75th anniversary of the D-Day landings, but call them out.
US President Donald Trump arrives in Britain on Monday morning, along with First Lady Melania. Khan has encouraged Londoners to protest against the visit in a lawful manner.
Stay tuned. Let's begin this segment with Greece, where conservatives have swept the local elections there. With New Democracy's win, the position of the ruling left has been jeopardized in upcoming general elections. According to provisional results, opposition New Democracy candidates won 11 out of the 13 regions. Mayoral candidate Kostas Bakoyannis gained lead in Athens with 65% of the vote. In the European parliamentary vote, the ruling leftist Syriza trailed New Democracy by about 10 points. This has prompted Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras to call for a snap election, expected to take place on July 7th. Well, the Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel, has said she respects, Andrei Nale's decision to resign as the Social Democrats leader. She added that the Christian Democrats coalition with the Social Democrats will continue.
European voters turned away from mainstream parties in last week's elections. The Social Democrats and Chancellor Merkel's Christian Democrats were among the casualties. The ruling coalition had already come close to falling apart last year. For now, Merkel supports the SPD leader's decision to quit.
Andrea Nahles
has made a far-reaching decision both for herself personally as well as for the Social Democratic Party of Germany. I would like to express my respect for the decision from Andrea Nahles. I worked with her many years both as the Federal Minister of Labour and Social Affairs and party and parliamentary group leader.
Bundesministerin für Arbeit und Soziales als dann auch als
The current coalition is expected to rule until 2021. However, Andrea Nahles' departure could trigger an early exit for the party. Chancellor Merkel says the government's work will continue for now.
Of course, I also have respect for the decision the Social Democratic Party must make in respect to Andrea Nahles' successor. Regardless of this, I would like to say on behalf of the government, we will continue the government's work with all seriousness.
An opinion poll published on June 1st shows Germany's Greens are now the country's most popular party. On the other hand, support for the SPD has sunk to an all-time low.
Well, China has said it is willing to strengthen its all-round strategic partnership with Germany. Wrapping up his 4-day visit to Germany, Vice President Wang Qishan said the two countries should safeguard multilateralism. He said they should set an example for win-win cooperation by deepening their ties. In response, Chancellor Merkel said Germany is ready to cooperate to improve global governance. Let's go now to Italy, where a cruise ship has collided with a dock and a tourist boat in Venice, injuring 4 people. The accident on the Giudecca Canal was caused by a technical problem. The 275-meter-long liner was approaching a passenger terminal when it crashed into a much smaller moored boat. Some 2,700 passengers were on board the ship, while the boat was carrying 110. Emergency officials said 4 female tourists suffered minor injuries. In news coming out of India, a sweltering heat wave and a shortage of water have forced farmers in southern Karnataka state to sell their farm animals.
Indian rural economy is primarily dependent on agriculture and cattle farming. Farmers keep flocks of bulls, cows and buffaloes and use them in agrarian tasks such as ploughing the fields. But the severe drought has reduced the market value of cattle.
There is no rain. We had to prepare for the sowing crops, but we couldn't do anything. From where do we bring the fodder? We have come to sell these bulls today. We have bought them for 60,000, 70,000 rupees, but we are not getting the prices right now.
Farmers have urged the government to take steps to provide them with enough water for irrigation and cattle breeding.
The federal government should take an initiative to join the rivers from all states. It will make them useful for irrigation. It will save both us, farmers, and the animals. Cattle help us to make a living. We don't want to sell them, so I demand for this initiative from the government.
Cows are considered as a sacred animal in India and are worshipped by a majority of Hindus.
Well, in Senegal, people have begun organizing themselves to fight the growth of garbage. More on that now in this report.
Vast swathes of plastic waste and rotting fish have become an inescapable reality in Senegal. But now the government and people have teamed up to rid the country of its trash problem. Young people are leading the charge.
Each citizen should not ask what his municipality can do for him, but what he can do for his municipality. This is why we do not really expect the commitment of the municipality or other structures. But we as young people who are experiencing this misfortune, we will make our contribution.
Senegal's President Macky Sall has vowed to make the country a zero-waste nation. But this will not be easy. Volunteers complain the trash they pick up often replaces itself within hours.
We do not have all the human and material resources to deploy at the level of each commune or at the level of each link. So today, if we see that an association is rising to support the process, we can only welcome it.
Those managing waste collection efforts say the real victory will come when mindset about waste disposal change.
Well, in Morocco, facelifts and renovations have helped the old city of Fez lure tourists. Fez is famous for its centuries-old museums, libraries, and handicrafts. More in this report.
In recent times, imperial city of Fez has been overlooked by tourists in favor of Marrakesh. But now Morocco's spiritual capital is bustling with visitors due to major renovations and low-cost flights. Since 2013, more than 90 million euros have been poured into the city to restore old buildings. At least 4,000 buildings were saved between 2013 and 2018, while 27 monuments were repaired.
Every year there are a lot of changes and renovations, such as the restoration of the walls and of the Fez river. Every year there are changes in the streets and renovations of the tiles. The city looks good now.
Within city's high walls lie 9,000 historical houses, 11 madrasas, 83 mausoleums, 176 mosques and 1,200 workshops. Noble palaces, elegant fountains and ancient caravanserai are among the jewels lying there to be visited. However, the first thing that most tourists want to discover when visiting the old city of Fez are the tanneries.
From what we hear, this tannery is 12 centuries old. It has been renovated 3 times. The last one was in 2015. The state of the tanneries is much better today because before it wasn't safe for the tourists to walk near the basins.
Home to the world's oldest working library, Fez was listed as UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1981. The library is the guardian of priceless treatises in Islamic studies, astronomy and medicine.
U.S. stock futures, Asian share markets, and oil prices have slipped to multi-month lows. The market skidded on intensifying Sino-U.S. trade tensions and Washington's tariff threats against Mexico. The E-mini futures for S&P dropped 0.5% in early Asian trade to 2,738. Japan's Nikkei slipped 1.1% to a 4-month low. Chinese shares advanced 0.9% but kept within its recent range. In oil markets, U.S. crude futures dropped 1.1% in early trade to $52.92, weakest since mid-February. Brent crude futures tumbled 1.5% to $61.06 per barrel. Copper futures in Shanghai fell 0.5% to 2-year lows. Well, the Golden State Warriors have tied the championship final series against Toronto Raptors. The Warriors defeated the Raptors in the second game by 109 points to 104. In a thriller at the Scotiabank Arena, Andre Iguodala scored a game-winning three-pointer to seal the victory for the Warriors. Klay Thompson and Stephen Curry led the Warriors' attack, hooping 48 points together. Kawhi Leonard took a game-high 34 points and added 14 rebounds for Toronto. Both sides meet again on Thursday. It's time now to find out what the weather is like around the world. Well, that's all for now. You're all caught up. Don't forget to visit our website, indus.news, for more on these stories and others. And don't forget to follow us on social media as well.